In the distant future, humanity had outgrown the confines of Earth. After centuries of struggle and development, humans had reached a critical tipping point, the dawn of interstellar exploration. Earth had flourished under a unified global government, and its people, once divided by borders and ideologies, now worked together toward a common dream, reaching the stars. The first true leap into the cosmos came when humanity unlocked faster-than-light, FTL, travel, a breakthrough made possible by an enigmatic discovery deep within the remnants of an ancient alien artifact unearthed on Mars. The artifact, of unknown origin, contained blueprints for a propulsion system far beyond anything humans had conceived. With this gift from the stars, humanity began to venture further into the galaxy than any species had ever gone before. At first, the journey beyond their solar system was slow and cautious. The United Earth Space Federation, UESF, was formed to lead the charge, its vessels equipped with the newly discovered FTL engines. They charted the unknown expanse of space, cautiously establishing colonies on nearby planets. The galaxy, however, was not empty. There were other civilizations, some benevolent, others fiercely territorial. And yet, humanity's relentless ambition quickly became evident. In the early years, humans met the Zilrith, a highly advanced insectoid species with a reputation for being isolationist and aggressive. They saw the arrival of human ships as an intrusion and reacted with hostility. But instead of retreating in fear, the humans fought back with a fierce, unrelenting resolve. The Zilrith underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, and in their arrogance, they failed to recognize the potential of a species driven by ingenuity, willpower, and unity. The conflict with the Zilrith became a crucible for humanity's rise to power. The humans didn't just defend themselves, they adapted the alien technology they recovered from battles to create new, superior weapons, ships, and shields. The Zilrith, with their superior numbers and technology, couldn't anticipate how quickly humans would turn their tactical ingenuity into an advantage. Within a decade, humanity's fleet had become a formidable force, pushing back the Zilrith, reclaiming lost colonies, and securing their position as a dominant power in the sector. The victory over the Zilrith was not merely a military one. It was a psychological blow. Humanity had proven to the galaxy that they were not just another species to be subjugated. They were conquerors in their own right. The moment the last Zilrith warship surrendered, humanity's reputation was sealed. The galaxy began to see them not as mere explorers, but as the next great empire. Yet, even as humanity celebrated, whispers of resistance were heard in the deepest corners of space. Some species, fearful of what humanity might become, began to form alliances of their own. They called themselves the Coalition of the Starborn, a loose confederation of alien civilizations that sought to stand against the rapidly growing human presence. They watched with growing unease as humanity expanded its influence from the outer rim to the heart of the galaxy. But for the first time in centuries, humans had something that no one else did: the power to unite, to adapt, and to innovate at an unprecedented rate. This was no longer a world of fragmented nations or bickering tribes. The human race had become one. They had the drive to achieve their destiny, and they would not be stopped by any force, alien or otherwise. In the wake of their victory over the Zilrith, humanity's starship fleets began to patrol the newly acquired territories. Colonies were established, thriving in a way they never had before. The UESF began to form partnerships with various alien species, though most were done under terms heavily favorable to the humans. Some were eager to trade, some were forced into submission, and others found themselves under the protection of the growing human empire. For the first time, humanity began to shape the future of the galaxy in its image. But as the stars beckoned, the dangers of their ambition also began to take shape. The coalition of the Starborn was growing stronger, and their intentions were no longer a whisper in the dark. The humans had awakened something in the galaxy, something that would not rest until they had been driven back into the void. As humanity's grip on the galaxy tightened, they began to realize that the path to becoming the true masters of the cosmos would not be without sacrifice. What had begun as a quest for exploration and expansion was quickly evolving into a fight for survival and supremacy. The stars were no longer a symbol of hope, they were a battlefield ere the fate of entire civilizations would be decided. The age of humanity's rise had begun. But it was only the beginning. The taste of victory was sweet, but the price of conquest was not without its challenges. As humanity's influence expanded across the galaxy, the coalition of the Starborn began to rally its forces with alarming speed. Comprised of diverse and once disparate species, the coalition was united by a singular purpose: to resist the growing human empire. Led by the enigmatic Gorlak, a towering warrior priest from the ancient and secretive Zenthra race, the coalition was a force to be reckoned with. The Zenthra were a powerful telepathic species, capable of manipulating minds and emotions with ease. Under Gorlak's command, the coalition became more than a mere alliance. It became a beacon of defiance, a symbol of the galaxy's resistance against what they saw as the inevitable dominance of humanity. The coalition's strength lay not just in their military might, but in their ability to counter humanity's unique advantage, its unity and adaptability. The Starborn had learned from the mistakes of the Zilrith, and their strategy was clear: divide and conquer. The coalition didn't seek to engage humanity directly on the battlefield. Instead, they worked to sow division and mistrust among the human colonies, creating unrest and rebellion within their new territories. In the heart of human space, a growing number of fringe factions began to question the methods of the United Earth Space Federation. The dream of unity and progress was still alive, but now it was tinged with the fear of oppression. Had humanity truly become the new beacon of hope for the galaxy, or was it just another empire in the making, destined to become just as tyrannical as those that had come before? As the rebellion grew within human borders, the UESF was forced to respond with increasing authoritarian measures. The galaxy had never seen a government as powerful and far-reaching as the one humanity had established. Military police patrolled the colonies, and dissent was ruthlessly stamped out. The once egalitarian vision of a united human race began to fracture under the weight of its own expansion. But the coalition was not just a political opposition. It was also a military threat. In response to humanity's growing power, the coalition began to build up its own fleet, using tactics learned from their encounters with humanity's forces. They had studied human strategies carefully, learning to exploit the weaknesses of human commanders. Instead of fighting head-on, they employed guerrilla tactics, striking from the shadows, causing chaos within the human territories, and then disappearing into the depths of space. Humanity, however, was not a race to back down. The UESF quickly adapted, using advanced surveillance technology and a new generation of artificial intelligence to track and neutralize the coalition's movements. The UESF's ships were faster, more advanced, and more heavily armed than anything the coalition could field. But in the shadows, the coalition's clandestine war was taking a toll. Discontent within human colonies grew as the coalition's propaganda spread, questioning the true cost of humanity's rise. A particular group, known as the Freeborn, had become a significant thorn in the side of the human empire. Comprised of former citizens, traitors, and even defectors from the UESF, the Freeborn operated as a highly effective insurgent force within human-held space. Their main objective was not just to resist the UESF, but to ignite a civil war, one that would split the human race, weakening it enough for the coalition to strike at its heart. With each passing month, the Freeborn grew bolder, and their attacks more sophisticated. They began to target key human military installations, causing significant damage to the UESF's ability to respond to the coalition's larger movements. The UESF's leadership was under immense pressure. They were at war on two fronts: the coalition of the Starborn and their own internal insurgency. In the midst of this chaos, a new leader began to emerge within the human ranks. General Alicia Hart, a decorated veteran of the Zilrith War, was appointed to lead the UESF's response to the coalition. Known for her brilliant tactical mind and unyielding will, Hart was the last hope for the Federation's stability. But even she knew that the challenges facing humanity were unprecedented. How could the UESF maintain control when their very existence was being threatened by forces both external and internal? General Hart's first order of business was to unite the divided human factions. She understood that a fragmented humanity would never stand a chance against the growing threat of the coalition. But as she worked tirelessly to reassert control, she began to realize that the unity she sought might come at a greater cost than she had ever imagined. The stage was set for a conflict that would determine not only humanity's future but the fate of the entire galaxy. The Coalition, with its mysterious leaders and deep-rooted alliances, was a force unlike anything humanity had ever faced. It was no longer a question of if humanity could maintain control of the stars, it was a question of how much they were willing to sacrifice to keep their dominion intact. The first true test of the human spirit had arrived. Would humanity rise as conquerors, or would they falter beneath the weight of their own ambition? The war was no longer a distant possibility, it was upon them. Humanity's future hung in the balance, and the galaxy itself seemed to tremble at the thought of what might come next. The coalition of the Starborn, though far from as powerful as the UESF in terms of sheer numbers, had a distinct advantage: unity forged in resistance. The coalition's members had been united not by conquest or imperial dreams, but by their need for survival, and that bond made them more resilient than anyone anticipated. On the front lines, General Alicia Hart proved herself to be a brilliant tactician. Her ability to outmaneuver coalition forces in battle earned her respect across the human fleet. However, despite her skill, the UESF was stretched thin. The insurgent Freeborn, bolstered by alien allies sympathetic to the coalition's cause, had grown far more effective than anyone predicted. They were operating in the shadows of human-held space, sabotaging vital military supply lines, blowing up starports, and sparking uprisings on every frontier world. Within the human colonies, divisions had deepened. The UESF's iron-fisted control, once a source of pride, had begun to wear thin with the people. Colonies that had once celebrated the new age of human expansion were now rife with whispers of rebellion. The Freeborn's propaganda spread like wildfire, painting the UESF as nothing more than a despotic empire. Their message resonated with the marginalized, with the workers on distant mining worlds, and with the colonies that had been neglected in the wake of humanity's rapid growth. Meanwhile, the coalition saw a golden opportunity. With the UESF distracted by the growing civil unrest, they struck. A massive coordinated assault launched from coalition-held space. The first target, the human mining world of Merix 7, rich in a rare mineral essential for UESF FTL engines. Within hours, the planet fell into chaos. The UESF military presence was decimated by the coalition's surprise attack. The humans had learned the hard way that their technological superiority was not invincible, and their belief in an invulnerable military apparatus was being shattered in real time. The loss of Merix 7 sent shockwaves throughout the Federation. It was not just a military defeat, it was a blow to the spirit of the human colonies. The Federation had always prided itself on its ability to protect its people. But now, for the first time, humanity had experienced a true taste of vulnerability. If the coalition could strike at the heart of human territory and hit them where it hurt most, there was no telling where they might go next. In response, General Hart called for a massive counteroffensive, one that would send a clear message to the coalition and the insurgents alike: humanity would not be cowed. She requisitioned the newly developed Nova-class dreadnoughts, the pinnacle of human military technology, and led the charge to retake Merix 7. Her plan was simple: to destroy the coalition's primary fleet base, forcing them into a decisive battle and buying time for the Federation to reassert control over its colonies. But as Hart's fleet sailed toward Merix 7, she received an unexpected transmission, an encrypted message from an unknown source within the Freeborn. It was brief, but chilling: "The time is coming. Do not trust the UESF. The true enemy is already here." The words rattled Hart's confidence. She had always seen the Freeborn as insurgents, radicals who had lost sight of the unity humanity once shared. But this message, this warning, changed everything. Who could have sent it? And what was the true nature of the enemy they were fighting? Was the coalition just a resistance force, or was there something darker at play, an unseen power manipulating the strings of both the UESF and the Starborn? As Hart pondered the implications of the message, the battle for Merix 7 unfolded. The coalition, anticipating Hart's retaliation, had set a trap. The UESF's forces entered the system expecting an easy fight, but what they found was nothing like the battlefield they had prepared for. Instead of a straightforward military engagement, the humans walked straight into a vast web of coordinated traps. Mines, ambushes, and hidden ships disrupted their formations. The coalition had learned from their earlier encounters, and now they fought like a well-oiled machine, each move a counter to the UESF's tactics. The engagement devolved into chaos. As the human dreadnoughts fired upon coalition ships, the true scale of the conflict became apparent. The battle for Merix 7 would not be won through brute force. Instead, the UESF would have to rely on cunning and innovation. General Hart, refusing to be beaten at her own game, enacted a daring plan to break the stalemate. She ordered a full retreat, a move that caught the coalition off guard. But as the Federation forces withdrew, they left behind something more dangerous than any weapon, an anomaly. The Nova-class dreadnoughts had unwittingly created a tear in the fabric of space itself during the battle's climax, a rift that had begun to destabilize the entire system. The UESF had no choice but to abandon the planet entirely, cutting their losses before the damage became irreversible. The battle was over. But the war was far from won. The loss of Merix 7, combined with the growing insurrection within human colonies, left the Federation on the brink. The UESF had been forced into a retreat, and the coalition had gained momentum. But amid the chaos, a new question loomed larger than ever: what lay beyond the coalition? Was the true war yet to come? And what, exactly, did the Freeborn mean by the true enemy? Was humanity fighting for control of the galaxy, or for something far darker that lay in the stars? The battle for Merix 7 had been a catastrophe for humanity, a symbol of their fragility. The rift in space, though unintended, was something the Federation could not ignore. Scientists and engineers scrambled to study the phenomenon, hoping to understand its origin and its potential implications. The rift, a swirling tear in the fabric of spacetime, seemed to pulse with an energy unlike anything humanity had encountered. It was not a natural occurrence. The pattern of its formation and the subsequent gravitational anomalies were too precise to be an accident. As the UESF dispatched specialized teams to study the rift, General Alicia Hart found herself pulled into a more pressing matter. The retreat from Merix 7 had given the coalition a temporary advantage, but the Federation could not afford to lose any more ground. The Freeborn insurgency was becoming bolder with each passing day, and tensions within human-controlled space were at a boiling point. She needed answers, and quickly. Hart's mind kept returning to the message she had received: do not trust the UESF. The true enemy is already here. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was more at play than just the coalition and the Freeborn. Her growing suspicions were only heightened by the mysterious anomaly in space. Could the rift be connected to the message? Was it a weapon, a trap, or something far more sinister? Despite the urgency of the situation, Hart decided to take a risk. She would personally oversee the investigation into the rift. If the UESF leadership was hiding something, or if there was a deeper threat she wasn't aware of, she needed to uncover the truth before it was too late. Aboard the Ardent Flame, the flagship of the UESF's fleet, Hart met with her most trusted advisors. The mission was simple: get to the rift, study it, and figure out its origins. But as they approached the unstable rift, something unexpected occurred. A deep, resonant hum filled the air, originating from the rift itself. The hum was not just a sound, it was a vibration that seemed to reach deep into the minds of everyone on board. And then, a voice. "Humanity," it said, speaking directly into Hart's mind, "you are not the first to stumble upon the rift. Nor will you be the last." The voice was not human. It was ancient, cold, and filled with an undeniable power. A wave of nausea swept over Hart, and she staggered slightly, as if the voice had physically shaken her. She ordered the crew to maintain their distance, but it was clear that something extraordinary, and terrifying, was unfolding before them. The voice, deep and booming, continued. "This rift is a doorway. A passage between worlds. It was created by those who sought to control the stars. those who once ruled this galaxy before you. And they are returning." The crew aboard the Ardent Flame exchanged uneasy glances. Hart's heart raced as the implications of the message began to sink in. Who were these ancient beings? What did they want with humanity? And why had the rift opened now, just as the Federation was at its most vulnerable? As the ship lingered on the edge of the rift, Hart gave the order to initiate a full scan. What they found was chilling. The rift wasn't just a natural phenomenon, it was an artificial construct. At its core, buried deep within its energy field, were traces of a long-forgotten technology. The same technology that had enabled humanity's first steps into the stars. The discovery of the alien artifact on Mars, which had granted them FTL travel, now seemed less like an accident and more like a deliberate event. Someone, or something, had guided humanity to this point. Suddenly, the rift began to destabilize. The hum grew louder, more intense, and the entire ship shook violently. Hart's instincts screamed at her to flee, but before she could issue the order, something emerged from the rift. At first, it was just a flicker of light, a shimmering distortion. Then, it solidified. A massive, serpentine form, a colossal ship unlike anything the Federation had ever seen, appeared before them. It was a living ship, its hull shimmering like liquid metal, and its presence seemed to warp the very space around it. The crew stared in awe, and for a moment, no one dared to speak. It was as if time itself had frozen. Then, the voice spoke again, this time clearer and more commanding. "We are the architects. You are nothing but children, playing in the ruins of a forgotten empire." The ship opened a communications channel, and a being appeared on the holographic screen. It was not human, nor any species the crew had ever seen before. Its form was alien beyond comprehension, part energy, part matter. It radiated an intelligence so vast and ancient that it felt oppressive. "We are the Ural," the entity declared. "Creators of the rift. The ones who built the paths between the stars. And we have returned to reclaim what is ours." A stunned silence filled the bridge. The implications of the Ural's message were clear: humanity's rise was no accident. They had been guided here, unknowingly playing into the hands of an ancient race that had once ruled the galaxy. The Ural had returned, and they would not be content with merely observing. General Hart's mind raced. If the Ural were indeed the architects of the rift, their return could mean the end of humanity's ambitions, unless she could find a way to stop them. But how could humanity, so young and inexperienced, hope to fight against a race that had once controlled the very fabric of space itself? The Federation was about to face its most difficult challenge yet, and General Hart knew that the galaxy was on the brink of a new era, one that could either lead to humanity's extinction or the ultimate conquest of the stars. The revelation of the Ural's return sent shockwaves throughout the Federation, reshaping the course of the war. No longer was the struggle confined to the coalition of the Starborn and the internal rebellions. Now, humanity faced a much darker, older force, one that had shaped the galaxy long before the first human starships had ever ventured into the cosmos. The Ural's words were not taken lightly. Their ship, an incomprehensible fusion of organic and technological elements, hovered in orbit just beyond the rift. Their return was not a mere curiosity, it was a declaration of war. Humanity, it seemed, had unwittingly become pawns in a game far older than their own species could fathom. The Ural had once ruled the galaxy, and now they had come to reclaim it. In the weeks that followed, General Alicia Hart and the UESF scrambled to respond. What could they do against a race that had mastered the very fabric of reality? The Ural's ship alone was capable of manipulating space-time, warping gravity, and even distorting light itself. Their technology was so far beyond anything humanity had ever encountered that even the most advanced Federation weapons were useless in comparison. In response, the UESF sought allies among the coalition of the Starborn. The threat of the Ural was too great for the galaxy to ignore, and despite their differences, the coalition agreed to form an uneasy alliance with humanity. The various species of the coalition, who had once seen humanity as an invader, now recognized that the Ural were a common enemy. But even with the combined strength of the Federation and the Coalition, it was clear that the war ahead would be unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. As preparations for war began, General Hart realized that the conflict would not be won with sheer firepower alone. The Ural were not just a military force, they were an ancient, almost godlike race with powers that defied the very laws of physics. To defeat them, humanity would have to rely on something the Ural could never predict: the human spirit. Hart convened a secret council of military leaders, scientists, and strategists from both the Federation and the Coalition. The goal was to find a way to counter the Ural's overwhelming technological superiority. After weeks of intense study and brainstorming, a plan began to take shape, a daring gambit that could tip the scales in humanity's favor. The plan was simple, but the risks were immense. They would need to infiltrate the Ural's central stronghold, the source of their immense power. The Federation had already confirmed that the Ural's technology was linked to a massive energy core located deep within the rift. If they could destroy the core, they could cripple the Ural's ability to manipulate spacetime and give the Coalition and the UESF a fighting chance. But how could humanity hope to infiltrate such a place? The Ural's stronghold was protected by layers of dimensional barriers, impenetrable shields that distorted reality and made any form of attack nearly impossible. Conventional weapons and even FTL travel were rendered ineffective in the presence of the Ural's technology. Yet, the plan hinged on one key element: the rift itself. The anomaly that had brought the Ural back was not just a doorway between worlds, it was a potential weapon. The rift's strange properties could be harnessed, and its energy might be used against the Ural. The Federation's best scientists began to work on a device capable of manipulating the rift's energy, something that could break through the Ural's defenses. While the Federation raced to build the device, Hart knew that the war could not be won solely through science and technology. Humanity needed something more, a symbol of unity and determination. To rally the people, she knew that they would need a hero, a figure who could inspire the galaxy's defenders to fight against the Ural, no matter the cost. Meanwhile, within the Freeborn insurgency, an unexpected development took place. The Freeborn had always fought against the UESF's rule, but with the Ural's return, they found themselves in an impossible position. Their rebellion had always been about resisting humanity's rise to power, but now they faced a common enemy that threatened the very existence of all life in the galaxy. The Freeborn's leader, a former UESF officer named Talia Voss, reluctantly agreed to join the Coalition, albeit with mistrust toward the Federation. The political landscape was shifting, and alliances once thought impossible were now forming in the face of a common enemy. But even as the galaxy prepared for war, the true cost of the conflict began to emerge. Humanity had already paid a heavy price, both in lives and in the resources spent fighting on multiple fronts. Would they be willing to sacrifice everything to defeat the Ural? Or would their ambition to dominate the galaxy lead them to ruin? As General Hart prepared for the final assault, she faced a decision that would determine the fate of the galaxy. The Federation and the Coalition were ready to strike, but they were not ready for what they would find on the other side of the rift. The Ural had been waiting for them, and they had plans of their own. The final war had begun. The fate of humanity, the galaxy, and the very fabric of reality itself would be decided in the coming battle. The final war had arrived, and with it, the uneasy alliance between the Federation and the Coalition. For weeks, the combined forces of humanity and the Starborn had been preparing for a battle unlike any other. Ships were refitted, fleets assembled, and secret plans formed, all with one singular goal: to reach the heart of the Ural's power and destroy the energy core that sustained their control over the rift. General Alicia Hart stood at the helm of the Ardent Flame, her flagship, gazing out at the massive armada of Federation and Coalition ships gathered for the assault. The rift loomed before them, its edges rippling with energy, the swirling chaos of spacetime a constant reminder of the Ural's terrifying control over reality itself. It was a sight that would have struck terror into most hearts, but for Hart, it was a rallying cry. The fate of the galaxy rested on her shoulders, and she would not falter. "All ships ready," her calm officer reported, his voice tinged with nervousness. "We're about to enter the rift." Hart nodded, her face hardening. The Federation's scientists had completed the device that could manipulate the rift's energy, but it was still an untested technology. No one knew what would happen once they activated it, whether it would be enough to break through the Euroless dimensional shields or if it would destabilize the rift entirely. There was a chance that the whole fleet could be lost in the process. She turned to her officers, each of whom bore the same grave expression she did. We fight for our future. For humanity's future. And for every life in this galaxy. Whatever happens, we cannot allow the Ural to reclaim what they once had. The fleet moved forward, slowly entering the rift's gravity well. The moment they crossed the threshold, reality itself seemed to bend and twist around them. The stars outside the windows became elongated streaks of light, warping as if the very fabric of space was unraveling. The ships were hit with tremors, flashes of energy tearing through their hulls, as the rift's power sought to distort their movements. In the midst of the chaos, the Euroless ship appeared once again, its immense form cutting through the turbulence like a monolithic shadow. It was waiting for them, knowing they would come. A massive energy beam shot from the Ural vessel, striking the ardent flame with an explosive force that sent the flagship reeling. Shields flickered, hull plating groaned under the strain, but Heart held steady. This was only the beginning. "Brace for impact," she shouted, gripping the armrests of her command chair. The bridge shook violently as the Ural ship unleashed another wave of destructive energy. For a moment, it seemed as though the entire fleet might be wiped out in an instant. But then, something unexpected happened. A burst of light erupted from the center of the rift, and the ships felt a sudden, overpowering pull, almost as if the rift itself was trying to absorb them. In that instant, the Federation fleet's newly developed device kicked in. The rift's energy shifted, pushing back against the Ural's control, and the barrier protecting the Federation fleet began to weaken. "It's working," one of the scientists shouted from the comms. "We've breached their defenses, just a little more." The Ural, however, were not passive observers. Their ship began to pulse with light, and from within the rift, strange, eldritch creatures began to materialize, massive, serpentine forms that seemed to exist both within and beyond the physical realm. The rift's heart was not just a singular entity, it was a doorway to horrors older than the galaxy itself. The Ural had drawn power not only from their technology but from the very essence of the universe's chaotic depths. General Hart's eyes widened as one of the entities loomed before her flagship, its tendrils wrapping around the ardent flame. The ship's sensors flickered wildly as the creature's presence disrupted all communication systems, bending space itself around them. The Federation fleet's weapons fired uselessly, their blasts dissipating into nothingness. "This is it," Hart yelled. "We need to push forward. We have no choice." Aboard the ardent flame, the crew worked furiously to maintain control. Hart gave the order to abandon the rift's core if necessary, but deep down, she knew that they had no other option but to fight their way through. "We're almost there," Hart murmured. "Just a little longer." As the fleet continued to advance, they encountered more of the Euroless entities, monstrous creatures that defied any logical form, their very presence tearing at the edges of reality. Each battle against them drained the Federation and Coalition forces further, but they could not afford to retreat. The stakes were too high. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the core. The Ural ship loomed overhead, blocking their path, and from within it came the voice once again. "Foolish humans. You think you can defeat us? We are eternal. You are fleeting." Hart did not flinch. "You may be eternal, but we are humanity. We will never stop fighting." With that, she ordered the fleet to engage in a full assault. The ardent flame led the charge, firing its most powerful weapons at the Ural vessel. Despite the overwhelming odds, humanity's ships pushed forward, determined to take down the rift's core. The weapon built from the rift's energy began to activate, destabilizing the dimensional barriers surrounding them. Then, in a blinding flash of light, the rift's core detonated, sending a shockwave of pure energy through the battlefield. The Federation fleet was thrown into disarray, but the Ural ship began to crumble. Reality itself seemed to twist and warp around the rift as the core destabilized beyond control. The entities that had emerged from the rift howled in agony as their form unraveled. In a final act of desperation, the Ural ship attempted to reverse the damage, but it was too late. The rift collapsed in on itself, and the energy that had once sustained the Ural's power vanished. For a brief moment, there was silence. Then, the fleets of humanity in the coalition, battered and bloodied, could only stare in disbelief as the rift closed, and the Ural's influence was gone. The Ural were gone. The rift had collapsed, sealing away the eldritch horrors that had nearly consumed the galaxy. For the first time in history, humanity had not only survived an existential threat, but had triumphed. Aboard the Ardent Flame, General Alicia Hart stood amidst the smoldering wreckage of her bridge. The flagship had barely survived the battle, and across the fleet, hundreds of ships had been lost. The cost had been unimaginable, but as she gazed out into the vast emptiness where the rift had once been, she knew they had done what no species before them could. The Ural, the so-called architects, had believed themselves eternal, beyond the reach of mortality. Yet they had underestimated the one thing that had always defined humanity, their refusal to surrender, The Federation's fleet limped home, their forces battered but victorious. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. The freeborn insurgency, once determined to resist the UESF, found itself without a purpose. Their rebellion had been driven by the belief that humanity had no right to rule the stars. But now? Now they had proven that no other species was more capable of shaping the galaxy's future. The coalition of the Starborn, once bitter rivals of humanity, found themselves standing in awe. The Ural had been gods to them, ancient, untouchable beings that had ruled before recorded time. Yet humanity had done the impossible. They had slain the gods. In the halls of the UESF High Command, a meeting was called. Humanity had changed. The war had reshaped them into something greater, something more. No longer were they the upstart species clawing for dominance. They had faced the most powerful force in the universe and emerged victorious. Now, the question remained, what came next? Would the Federation rebuild its fractured alliances and seek peace? Or would humanity, emboldened by its victory, take the next step, becoming the true masters of the cosmos? Alicia Hart already knew the answer. Standing before a crowd of billions in the heart of Earth's capital, she delivered the speech that would define humanity's destiny. We have fought. We have bled. We have faced gods and torn them from their thrones. No longer will humanity stand as equals among the stars, we are beyond that now. We are not conquerors of mere planets. We are the masters of the cosmos itself. The galaxy would never be the same. And humanity had only just begun.